Welcome to complete info and tips for those adopting a new cat or kitten. I'm sure there are thousands of videos similarly titled that you can find online, but I was compelled to make my own, being that almost every other one I've ever seen leaves a few things out, which are to be found in still other videos. And when those other things are mentioned in other videos, those leave out still other things. So here's my offering of a complete set of tips and information combined for those who've just adopted or are about to adopt a new cat or kitten. Okay, let's begin. Find out from the shelter or pet store or individual from whom you're getting your new pet as much of their history as possible. Do they have medical records? Get them. Is the animal microchipped? If not, consider getting them microchipped, even if you will be fitting your new cat with a name tag and collar. In most cases, when a pet has run out of the house and got lost, if someone else is kind enough to take them in, even an enclosed space outside, they are also kind enough to try taking them to their local veterinarian to have them scanned for a microchip. This will allow you to be easily and instantly reunited with your lost cat. Which brings us to the next tip. Even if you plan to have your cat or kitten stay indoors at all times, consider fitting them with a collar that has their name and your contact information on it. Not everyone who finds a lost cat will think to drive them to a vet for a microchip check. Indeed, not all will even be able to get the animal in the car in order to do so, or own a pet carrier, which would be needed. So, in anticipation of the possibility that they may run outside when the door opens, or however else that may happen in your home, have their name followed by something to the effect of, "Please call your phone number if found," written or engraved on a name tag on their collar. My wife and I have personally been able to facilitate several reunions with both cats and dogs because of being able to entice them to our yard and then simply calling the number on the tag. If they have special needs, physical or mental deficiencies, or medical conditions or diseases, make sure you fully understand what it is and what it means for both of you. Be aware of the long-term implications it will have on both your lives and commit to it. Know how much of a financial impact that will regularly have on you and be honest with yourself about whether you can commit to it. This can be a big possibility if you are getting the cat from an individual rather than an animal shelter or pet store hosted event. Just be aware that it's at least possible they may not be telling you everything about your new cat. Like that they are very sick. That's just an example. Either way, you're going to be making the first vet trip very soon, at which time you will find out when getting a full examination. In choosing your new vet, if you don't already have one for another pet, look up reviews and see what others have to say, but of course using your best judgment to determine that those reviews are genuine, being that it's so easy to lie online. Many companies create profiles on social media for the sole reason of writing their own fake reviews. Of course, this goes for many companies and many businesses, while others do the same, sometimes in order to make a person or business appear to be bad or fraudulent, when they may simply have something personal against the owner, or they don't like that person's politics or religion, etc., etc. If you do get a good feeling about the vet you chose upon first visit, have their phone number posted somewhere you can easily find it, like the refrigerator. I know having it in your phones is obvious, but I must mention that as well. Also, find out if there is a 24-hour animal hospital in your area, and if so, post that number right beside your vet's. Trust me, having that particular number ready to find and use within seconds can save a life. If you go out of town or even have a pet sitter for relatively shorter times, make sure that person can find these numbers just as easily. And in fact, if it is indeed an emergency, perhaps they should be calling the hospital even before you. Please get him or her stainless steel feeding bowls instead of plastic ones. This is highly recommended due to plastic being a porous material which can easily crack, and either way, they are an invitation for bacteria. And you don't want your pets eating anything like that, which is almost entirely avoidable, any more than you yourself would want to consume it. Stainless steel bowls have no pores whatsoever. That said, clean their food and water bowls both regularly because bacteria can form on the food. And I don't mean just wiping a couple times with a wet paper towel or whatever. I mean actually clean it by washing on the edges and outside too. For their water, consider getting a fountain instead of a bowl. You may have noticed how cats are fascinated with running water. If not, try setting them beside a sink with water running, and in most cases they will at least stare at it with obvious fascination, but likely also will tap their paws at the stream and perhaps even try drinking from it. There's a reason for this, intrinsic to the nature of all breeds. They mostly prefer running water to still water, as that's how their DNA has designed them to live as natural-born hunters in the wild. Ponds, streams, rivers, the life and movement of running water is very attractive for them. Still and stagnant water is an invitation to a collection of dust and dirt and other settling particles from the motion of the air. If you get them a constantly spouting water fountain from which to drink, at least in most cases, they will be encouraged to drink more water, and that's just good for all living creatures. Besides, the filtration systems inside fountains collects any dust or dirt or cat hair and recycles past the filter only the clean, purified water. Of course, that also means you should be replacing the filters in these things fairly often, once every month or two. You can find cheap and fairly dependable ones for around $20 at your local Walmart type of store or even pet supply shop. But if you're willing to spend a bit more, then you can get larger ones also formed from stainless steel. In any case, they can drink the water emerging from these things without having to touch their tongues to any surrounding hard surface, no matter what it's made from. If you already have a cat at home and you've just adopted another or are about to, it is likely in about 50% of such cases that the one you already have will exhibit some degree of jealousy and may even react violently to the new one. Even if you think yours will not do such a thing, please introduce them in the way I'm about to describe. This is so very important that I hope you will research and get to know from others who will confirm. Have one room ready to be your new pet's own space, while the one you already have will stay outside that room for now. Do not let them see each other yet, and if possible, bring the new one into the set-aside room without either knowing of the other. They will, of course, become aware very quickly by each other's scent, which is so many times more powerful than yours or mine, and probably also by at least one of them making sounds. Let them get to know each other this way for at least a day or two. At least. You will get a feel for how long to keep this up as you see how they take to one another. If one is a kitten, he or she will, of course, be far more curious and not violent, but for his or her safety, keep them separated for some time. Pay attention to the sounds your first cat makes when approaching the door to sniff beneath it at the scent of the new cat. Is he or she growling? Do they make loud noises or hiss and slap their paws, whether claws are out or not, at the door's underside when they perceive the other one's nearness? This means you need more time. If so, there is hope. Make sure they both have separate feeding bowls and give them rigid feeding times at which they will both be fed. Bring the bowls to opposite sides of the door that separates them. This will create a shared experience as well as a mental association between feeding and smelling the unique signature scent of the other cat. Soon this will normalize, and each one will come to expect to smell the other cat during feeding time and hear them eating too. If they seem to be getting used to this, try letting them have a peek at each other. Perhaps even hold one in a way you can be sure is both comfortable for them but firm for you, in readiness of their trying to quickly jump from your arms and even scratch you from fear. If there's another person present for this, have them either hold the other one or at least be near and petting them so they both know that it's all good. If one seems still tending toward violence or jealousy, you unfortunately may have to keep up this separation for another week or two. In our case, we brought home a male kitten 3 months old to our home where we had a female cat 7 years old. She never took to him and still growls and hisses, yet they have an understanding. He, being much younger and more active, always wants to play and to get her involved. She wants no part of it, and despite the fact that she could kick some serious butt if she wanted or needed to, she runs away from him at these times and will seek some hidden spot or windowsill where she can sit in peace. When feeling drowsy at the same time, they will lie down to sleep together. We had a very rough time in those first few weeks, but despite some things never changing, they did both come to understand the other's general disposition, and at least for the most part, act accordingly. Our little Philippe, now a year and a half and not quite so little, comes to us for play but still tries, with our girl Nova too. She, now 8 years old, generally wants to be away from all fast activity. You'll get to know their dynamic with each other soon enough, though, and be able to trust yourself with how to treat the situation. Play with them. Do not treat them like a piece of furniture, taking for granted that they're present and saying that they're just cats. If that's how you're going to look at it, then you and I are just humans. And I hope you would ask yourself what it is that you think using the word just does to the rest of that sentence, as if they're less important somehow. They are your family, and they want to interact. Remember, cats absorb our energy, and as we get to know them, they are getting to know us too. Just as you pick up on their characteristics, especially during those first few weeks, they are doing the same with you. Please do not just talk to them while doing other things or absent-mindedly dangling a toy down to them from beside a chair or the couch. I'm not saying you should stop all that, just don't only do that. It's so crucial to their well-being. Give them some time every day that is only for them. Get several types of toys for them to play with, different materials and sizes. I found that when I get down on the floor upon my hands and knees, our youngest walks up to me and treats me as if another cat. He walks up and rubs his side against mine while arching his back, then turns about and does the same again, repeating this. Be aware that when you hear them walk into another room away from you and start meowing, but then getting silent again once they see you walk into that room, that usually means they want or need some attention, and they really wish you would give it to them. If possible, get separate litter boxes for each cat that they can know is theirs alone. I know this does not always work, however, so If you need to make do with one, that's probably fine as long as you are thorough and regular about the remainder of this particular tip. Do not buy litter with added chemicals. It will sound more ideal reading that on the label, but just get the simple stuff. Pure clay ground up from the earth. Fresh pine can also be good, but my wife and I found that it's not so ideal regarding their urine, which tends to run right past that and quickly collect at the bottom beneath all the pine pellets. Use simple clay or small rocks and keep a spray bottle full of rubbing alcohol nearby. More on that in a moment. Clean their poop as soon as possible with a scoop made for that purpose at least once a day. Completely change the litter and clean the box no less than once a week. Now, those two things are crucial. It's not enough just to keep scooping stuff out. What they care about most, aside from food and play, is cleanliness. Please let them have that regularly, and they are likely to be as happy and healthy as you want them to be. Avoid the types of litter boxes that include a raking device, which exists to save you the ickiness of dealing with scraping or scooping. These have been known to malfunction and to cause intense injury to cats by the machinery bits sometimes moving across while the cat is still in it. Look, you take the time to clean up after yourself when going to use the bathroom, don't you? Okay, well, do the same for your cat. In some ways, it is like caring for a baby. That's just the way it is. You're going to have to deal with their waste, so just do so. And do it because you love them and care about their cleanliness and health as much as your own. So, that's cleaning out poop and caked urine once a day, and the litter itself along with cleaning agents on the inside of the box at least once a week, which ensures no urine is lingering there at the bottom. Cats don't want to smell that stuff getting stronger by the day any more than you do. Their urine will cake in the litter, though some of it will run through and collect on the bottom. This creates a very harsh, acidic scent that's hard to bear when getting close. So whenever you see them emerging from the litter box, or even at some random time in the day, give the surface of the litter a light spray of alcohol and use the scoop to sift all of it around, perhaps spraying once more. This will kill much of the scent and also any gnats or other small critters going after what your pet has left in the box. Now, the rubbing alcohol dries quickly when used in small amounts like this, and that is so very helpful for this purpose. That's what you want. Do not let any of your cats back into the litter for at least a couple of minutes, the time that it takes to dry up and completely dissipate, because of the next tip. Both rubbing alcohol and hydrogen peroxide can seriously harm your cats. Some people, unfortunately, in times of emergency, have in desperation grabbed one or the other to dab onto their pet when they get scarred or scratched or burned or punctured or you name it, when needing some topical treatment to a wound. Repeat the following to yourself as needed. Never, ever, under any circumstances, apply either of these to a wounded cat. If indeed it is a wound, which is relatively small and you know you can treat it at home and that they'll be fine, there are things you can readily find for this very purpose at your local pet store to keep ready for such moments. Some of them are all-purpose. Thankfully, we've only needed to use it thus far rarely and sparingly for either of our cats, but my wife and I keep a small bottle of Microcin AH handy for this, and you should too. It is antimicrobial, wound, and skin care, which is absolutely safe and does for your cat's wounds what hydrogen peroxide and rubbing alcohol do for ours. In all other cases of more extreme wounds, please see the 24-hour hospital phone number that you remembered to leave for yourself in an obvious place. When you hear or see them vomiting, and you will, check to make sure it's them coughing up a hairball and not actual food. Keep in mind that in grooming themselves so often in any given day, they end up swallowing a lot of their fur, and they cannot digest it, so it's good that they cough it up, which means you get to clean it up. If it's food they're throwing up, take them for a vet check to make sure there are no internal disorders or worms. If it's a hairball, just know that's normal. Try to coax them over to their water dish, though, to get a couple of drinks afterward. Regarding flea and tick removers, be very cautious using spray bottle applications. Half the brands we've tried, and in my experience this also goes for small dogs, have amounted to the animal cowering in a corner trying to hide and shaking and then vomiting a little bit and remaining in this condition for about a day. I have read scary stories of this same thing happening to others' pets, but with more violent shaking before the cat or dog died within 24 hours, and this all related to the product being used exactly as instructed. We have begrudgingly come to trust the Seresto brand collar for keeping away and killing fleas and ticks and their eggs, something you want to be especially watchful of during summertime. This particular collar is long-lasting and effectively kills any tiny insect that seeks to cling to and reproduce on our cats, all while keeping them perfectly healthy. So for that, they get our recommendation. If you do prefer, however, to use a topical treatment for your cats, you'll have to apply this generally once per month. And please research whether or not the particular brand you're choosing has any complaints about adverse effects on cats. Be aware that in all cases of topically applying any kind of cream which will ensure no living insects on your cat, you should apply it to the back of their neck and head while separating the fur to get as much as possible directly onto the skin and gently rub it in. Then do the same at the base of their tail. These are the areas fleas and ticks commonly like to collect themselves, as well as lay eggs. Also, these are spots which your cat cannot reach when grooming themselves, and that's good. You want to make sure they do not use their paws to lick and then try rubbing behind their head or rolling around on their backs. Do your best to let that be absorbed first. You can have ready for your home a spray which can be used on your carpet, the cat's bedding, upholstery, blankets of all kinds, almost any surface upon which your cat can lie down or walk. For this, we recommend Vet's Best Flea and Tick Home Spray. For applying a topical ointment to the cats monthly as an alternative to wearing a collar, we recommend Revolution Plus for cats, and so will probably your vet. Ensure that they have some sitting space at or near a window. Being hunters who find themselves living in a relatively small space, and this goes for even those of you with large homes, bearing in mind that any home is relatively small when compared to the boundlessness of all the great outdoors, having a spot from which to sit and be entertained by the sight of outdoor activity, especially when birds and squirrels or perhaps even stray and feral cats run by outside. It really is equivalent to watching television for them. Their hunter instincts are appeased too. If you're a first-time cat adopter, you'll soon see for yourself that funny and adorable sound they make, along with a particular movement of the mouth when seeing birds outside while they're imagining how they would taste. Consider also, whether near a window or not, buying them a tower, which is like cat furniture, frequently found with hiding spots and ropes with dangling toys. They're great for partly consisting of scratch posts, so they can either relax comfortably or get to action playing and scratching at stuff that was actually made for tearing at, unlike, I'm assuming, your other furniture. If not a tower, make sure they have one or two hiding places, at least. It's just another thing intrinsic to their nature, wanting to find their way into tight cubby holes and spots where nobody can find them. Well, we don't necessarily want that, but we do want them to be able to think that they have the option of some private areas. Simply leaving out an open paper bag often does the job for this one, or a cardboard box. But please do not use plastic bags, particularly those thin ones you get from grocery stores, as they tear easily, and you know by now how bad plastic can be for your cat, whether just licking it or managing to tear off and swallow a piece. Also, sometimes they will run in such a way, jump into the bag, and their head will get stuck on the handle, and that will get twisted around and cause some serious damage to their necks and their breathing, you can imagine. Regarding pet carriers, you can start small if you like, buying one that accommodates the size of your kitten, but I suggest just going ahead and buying a large one, knowing that they're going to grow quickly. Also, this way your kitten would have some serious moving around space. When you're both at home with nothing going on, leave the carrier out with the door open at least every now and then. Place a small towel or blanket inside along with one of their toys. This allows them to get comfortable in there and relax so that they can associate it with relaxation and comfort rather than just that thing they get forced inside of now and then. When you do have to use it, and there's at least one other person joining you for the ride to the vet or wherever you're going, have that person hold the carrier on their lap to keep it steady and talk to them. If it's just you in the car, set the carrier in such a way that they can see you behind the wheel of the car to know that you're there every second of the way, and talk to them calmly. If you keep indoor plants, please be educated on what types of plants are harmful to cats. That happens to be at least half of them. Either way, you'll want to make sure the leaves or foliage cannot be reached, since cats tend to chew at plant leaves, as you will find out. You can easily find online which specific types are harmful. Like plants, be aware of which essential oils are harmful to cats. Even of those which are not harmful, they should be well dissolved in water. There are some which are safe to use around cats, but you will find different people and different vets and websites claiming very different types of oils to be safe when diluted profusely in water. So I will not list any here since we can't seem to really be sure about a lot of them definitively. It really depends also on the body particulars of each specific cat, whether or not they are more or less negatively affected by any of these. Most essential oils are not only harmful, but downright toxic to cats. Most particularly that of tea tree, eucalyptus, and all citrus. Please be aware that I am not only talking about topical applications to them or their skin. I am talking also about burning oils in a diffuser with a small candle, as well as simply exposing the oil in any way that allows it to be smelled. This is something I wish I could have everyone understand out there who, like my wife and myself, loves lighting candles and burning incense and oils. And most people who do so seem to also love cats. So if you know someone who burns oil and incense, and you know they also have a cat, please spread the word. During Christmas, get yourself a fake tree with ornaments that are not breakable. Your cat will want to climb the tree, being that that's what they do. Climb trees. It's not something to get mad at them about. Also, real pine trees drop pine needles, which your cat is likely to swallow and subsequently develop internal injuries, costing you immense veterinarian bills. Also, that water that collects in the bowl beneath the tree, it's as toxic to your cat as breathing the fumes of most burning oils. And they will try to drink it. You can avoid all of this by simply getting a tree that is not real and also being very careful as to how you string your lights and how high up the tree will go those lights and the ornaments. Also, be mindful that they'll want to play with the tinsel, so be careful stringing that stuff. It can be swallowed. You should still, though, wrap a tree skirt around the base of the tree when fully lit, because your cat will be attracted to the combination of the warmth generated by the lights and the coziness of the area being somewhat of a hiding spot that they can call their own. Sure looks a lot better than a paper bag, too. Take your cat or kitten to a vet once a year at least. Do not skip this. Not just for a checkup, but to get their annual shots. Keep handy some appropriate wet wipes for your cat. We find that these are quite handy for use on their rear ends when seeing that there's a little something still sticking around after one of ours has exited the litter box. Sometimes you'll notice too that their rear end appears encrusted with stuff. Just think how you wouldn't want that remaining on your own rear end, and grab one of these to give them a little comfort by very gently rubbing it away. Make sure not to buy just anything marked wet wipes. It must be made specifically for use with cats. Again, easily found at your local pet supply store. And on the subject of rear ends, that brings us to our next tip. Check regularly their poop, their stool, their feces, whichever word you prefer, for worms. You may think that your newest member of the family has a perfectly safe and sheltered life indoors, but you'd be surprised how easy it is for various types of worms to find their way inside your kitty's intestines. We found once a type of tapeworm crawling around our little boy's stool, looking like moving grains of white rice. Fortunately, this problem can be easily and quickly solved at home. Visit your local animal pharmacy for Bayer dewormer for cats, which came suggested to us by our vet. You may even be able to find it at Walmart and Target type of stores also. We found the tablets to be rather big, but they can be crumbled and added to food. This stuff killed all of our little boy's tapeworms without any harm to the inner lining of his intestines, and in fact he had no visible reaction to or even subtle change in behavior because of this stuff doing its job effectively. I was actually quite surprised such a thing could happen so quickly and painlessly. There are other brands that some suggest even more so than the one my wife and I have personal experience with. Whichever brand you choose, please research the pros and cons of each and whether or not your kitten is old enough to take a particular kind, or if your vet will need to find you an alternative to something that can be purchased over the counter. Choose a food that is rich in protein and vitamins and low on or free of grains. The common popular brands you typically see available in giant bags in grocery stores are generally not the best or healthiest options. They tend to be high in corn and animal byproduct. You'll want to get them something that's mostly meat, but the higher quality of that, the better, which means try to avoid meat byproduct when reading the ingredients. Remember, they are hunters, and what do they mostly hunt when living outdoors? Varying types of birds. Some rice and carrots and peas are good to see in the ingredients, though. Do not avoid grain and vegetable content altogether. Just be aware that some companies pack their food with filler material that does our pets no good, much like we humans buying groceries, which include palm oil or corn syrup. Those things do nothing for us. They're only there to allow the food producers to pack a cheaper product and pad it out with filler material so that they can make a little more money or a lot more money. So, in this regard, you'll find it holds equally true for them as us that the healthier and more pure the food, the more expensive it will be. In the long run of your pet's life, please abide by this and get them something along these lines. Our kiddos both love Hill's Science Diet, which they've both been eating since we adopted our little boy. You may have a little frustrating fun searching for the right food for your cat. You can spend some time in the store reading the ingredients on multiple brands and speaking with employees about each, but it all comes down to whether or not your cat will eat it. Also, whether or not you are attempting to transition your cat from one food brand or type to another, and we have had some trouble with that, getting them off the crap food. You may also find that if you have more than one cat, only one of them loves the food while the other won't go anywhere near it. It may take some more time and effort than you thought, but you'll get there. Just don't ever settle for the usual brands. In addition to toys, get them some other stuff that they can make all their own with their own scent, especially a small, fluffy bed in which they can curl up, perhaps a small blanket, which they can dig beneath atop their carpeted tower or inside its dark cubbyhole. When you leave your house, knowing you will be returning with a new cat or kitten, check every room in great detail, even retracing your steps and double checking your work to make sure there are no containers of dangerous chemicals lying about, easily breakable little glass or ceramic figurines, exposed electrical cords which they are likely to chew, etc., etc. As you do this, potential dangers will sort of explain themselves along the way, and you'll think to yourself, oh, they'll knock this over, or aha, this too they might get into and get stuck. You will make mistakes along the way and be reminded by your new family member that some things you forgot or did not consider that they could get to, and that's okay, at least usually. It's all part of the learning experience that you share with each other. Do not, please, for the love of all that's good and righteous, do not keep their food and water near their litter box. Hopefully, in fact, they are in different rooms, or at least at opposite ends of the same room. Do you keep your food or other kitchen items in the bathroom and cook there? Enough said. They don't want the two relative activities associated any more than you do. Some feral cats simply do not take to remaining indoors and will insist on being outside, though will show the want of options to return and come inside. Also, some people adopt a cat and let them come and go outside the same way. If that's the case, they are, of course, far more susceptible to carrying home little critters like fleas and ticks and the eggs of either. Please give them a regular flea and tick treatment of some kind, as well as for worms and other potential interior issues. I do strongly suggest against letting your cat outdoors in situations where they can or will easily go outside of your yard, as I've known far too many from neighbors in different locations who've had to endure finding their cat run over by a car or torn apart by large animals, or simply having disappeared without ever getting to know what happened. Please know that these are all possibilities that you will face every single day if you choose to have an outdoor cat. If you do not already have any pets and the kitten you are about to adopt will be your first, please consider adopting a pair. If there are brothers and sisters available, they already have an established relationship that can continue, and it will certainly help ease the transition to their new home. Or even if unrelated, bring home two kittens who can grow up together as playmates. This will be especially helpful during the times that you are away from home when they can keep each other company. But that suggestion is a solid one only if both are kittens. If just one is a kitten while another is a cat, and this goes especially if it involves two who never got along too well past the introduction phase described earlier, there are plenty of videos with specialized information available for that situation. I will also leave it to other video creators to discuss caring for pregnant cats and helping her through the birthing process. I must say, though, it is a wonderful experience that I wish everyone who loves cats and is in a position to do something like that could have. If you can afford the additional charges of having a basic home security system set up, it's a great way to check in on your kiddos while you're out and about. We had an add-on service with our internet provider, which for an extra $20 per month got us a small camera to install anywhere inside or outside our home. We had to discontinue service with that particular provider due to frequent connectivity issues, but I mention this for your consideration so that you can peek in on your cats while you're away to see that they're safe, as well as having the amusement of seeing how differently they act in your absence, if at all. In closing, I hope you will further consider doing what you can to care for stray and feral cats. If you find a cat wandering about outside without a collar, please be aware that your local shelters have something called the Catch and Release program. You can call them to ask about it, and if they do it, either they will come out and collect the cat, or you can drive him or her to them, if you're able to catch the cat, of course, and get him in your car. They will then give them necessary shots for their health and immunization, as well as spay or neuter as necessary, and you will not be charged money for this. Then they will drive them back to the area where they were picked up or found and be released in the same spot. Look into doing what you can for our homeless furry friends outside, especially in extreme weather conditions. You may find that the tip of their ear has been clipped. If you see that, a missing piece of their ear, that's what they do to show that a cat has been through the experience of the catch and release program. So if you see that and you're able to take them in, know that they've already had it done. Sometimes the best you can do is simply leave some food and water if you know they come around regularly. An alternative to this is the barn animal program. Ask whether or not your local shelter does this, if not the other. It involves giving the cats to farmers where the cat will act as hunters of mice in and near barns. This way, the feral cat can keep his or her outdoor life with the option of coming into a place for shelter on their own terms, where they'll also quickly come to know that there will always be food for them. I want as many people as possible to know about these two options, since they don't have to do much to make it happen beyond a phone call to save some cats' lives. If you find a stray cat without collar or tag, get them to a vet or pet store if you can. Most of these places will do a free check for a microchip. You can also search online for local people missing their pet. If someone claims to be missing that pet, consider asking them to prove it by identifying certain body marks or characteristics that you can see. If there's a collar or tag, please try to get the animal close and call the owner. Take the time to try reuniting them. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your time with your new family member or members.